welcome everybody to SLAB SAVERS Scenario 4. We're going to be looking at a fire that's actually dispatched with an established fire on the second floor of a residential occupancy here. And this is going to lead to a Ric activation. So we kind of wanted to walk through how a Ric activation works within the SLAB SAVERS program a little bit. And let's start off this with just again going through the condition report. If you follow the below me standard of condition report, you're going to describe the building, you're going to describe the extent and location of the fire, the occupancy, the water supply, whatever you need for catching the supply line for a hydrant, and then the mode of operation, again, investigate, command, rescue, attack, or protect exposures, and then extra resources, going back to the MORE acronym, medical, overhead, rehab and recall, extra resources to complete that process, and then an extra engine or an extra alarm or whatever extra resources you need for the incident that you're concerned with. So walking through that below me, unit on scene, medic engine 1, I'm on scene at 320 South Mayday. I have a 2-story single family dwelling, and I'm going to describe that I also have a basement in this one as well. We'll come back to that when we get to the slab here. With a basement, it appears to be balloon frame construction with heavy fire and smoke showing from the second floor on the Alpha Delta corner. Right. So now I described actually my extended location of fire. It appears to be occupied at this time. We've established our own water supply. I'll be assuming melee command. Go ahead and start me one additional engine and an ambulance. So that actually rounds out that condition report. And then I'm going to get my 360, complete my SLAB 360, and then afterwards I'll give a 360 report, and then that will determine my strategy whether I'm going offensive or defensive. So let's actually slab this building here. So safety profile, I already brought up one of those. There's a foundation subfloor. Once you actually step up those steps, you can see that it does have a basement underneath or a subdivision for this residence. The other big safety concern, and I don't know if you caught it on this, but the trash can here is actually on fire. Some type of ember or material has dropped down from this second floor window, caught this trash can on fire. So that's going to be a concern of mine to, again, those hazards, locate, communicate, isolate, mitigate. I'm going to mitigate this pretty quickly by applying some water or moving that trash can away from the structure. If I don't mitigate that trash can, this is actually what's actually going to become our mayday situation or our rescue situation later. So I'm going to mitigate that. So that kind of takes care of some of the safety concerns. Life profile. On this building, there's a lot of opportunities for you to have some survivability profile on that second floor. So definitely search and rescue is going to be a high priority for us. And definitely some survivability profile for there. Air track for this, it looks like I got a well-established fire. It's showing from the second floor, and it's got some good flow path. So it should be very obtainable to actually get in there, capture this fire, keep it pushed towards that Alpha and Delta corner, and keep it from extending through the rest of the house. So I really got a good air track, and you know, I can see that if those windows have broken out, it's hot enough to break those windows, or those windows were open before I arrived, so I got good fire showing from those windows. And then the building itself. So the other one we talked about was this is actually balloon frame construction. And my concern with balloon frame construction is maybe it actually started on the floor below or even in the basement. And in those balloon frame constructed houses, you can have fire below you and it's showing up above, whether it's the second floor or even from the attic, and have fire all the way that's channeled from the basement below. So I definitely want to make sure that I'm looking for that. I'm checking the basement for any smoke at that level. Luckily here you got this open area of the porch, so that's probably not the case, but I still want to make sure that I verify that if I have any fire below us. So that's some of the building. Now as I walk through the SAVERS portion, this is a pretty quick fire. Again, I'm going to have that first in engine actually assume command. My firefighter is going to stretch a line, start doing some transitional attack. And as that second due engine comes in, I'm just going to make them fire attack. So you kind of like start walking through it. Engine 1, when they arrived on scene, they're setting up the 2 out and actually becoming the instant commander. Engine 2 is actually going into the attack mode and going in there to fight the fire. And as you transition, as the battalion chief gets on scene and they assume command, I can go back with my company and perform other tasks. Or I can actually become a division supervisor or operations or safety, but in this type of fire, I'm probably just going to end up coming back with my company. So once the battalion chief relieves me as a captain to do that, and I actually have a RIC team established, Engine 3 arrives on scene, Engine 1 is going to get moved over to the fire attack problem, or you can put them under search, but it's under the fire attack group, and I'm going to assume fire attack group with the emphasis of a primary search inside this structure. The truck is going to go to the roof, and like we talked about here, I'm circling the person that's in charge of the group to make them well aware that that's actually the person in charge on my tactical worksheet. Again, if you're using tablet command, you just push and hold that unit until it actually pops up with a star, and then select them as the supervisor, and it will automatically move them to the top and recolor them as the division or group supervisor. The truck is going to go to the roof and cut holes. This is going to be, because it's an older style home, it is going to be conventional construction. And a matter of fact, this roof construction is probably going to be to where it's a hip roof on all four sides with a peak. So the truck company should actually be able to get a good hole on the hip side, on this A side, and get a really good vantage point to get a good hole in there for your ventilation efforts. Again, there's going to be definitely some extension checks that need to be done, but this is going to be all run under fire attack. The spanning control for this is definitely doable to run that as well. So like we discussed, this one we actually are going to try to get this to where this becomes a firefighter down problem or a rescue problem with the layout of the house. So if we kind of move this forward, and let's say that you didn't mitigate that hazard in the trash can, and that trash can fire continues to grow, and you've actually taken a line in here and deployed inside the structure, and now all of a sudden that fire grows to where it actually gets up inside this porch area, and maybe even starts to consume that porch. Now we're going to talk about a firefighter rescue using the rescue acronym. And the first thing, that R in the rescue acronym, is Ric Deployment, or activate your RIC team. So your RIC deployment in this, there's a lot of different ways that this can go. Still, the biggest way to mitigate this hazard is extinguish this portion of the fire, but let's say maybe it burned through their hose line. For whatever reason, let's walk through the rescue acronym. The Ric Activation can actually throw additional ladders. Hopefully your standard operating procedure has the RIC team doing that, but you're going to activate the RIC to effect a firefighter rescue. The next one is the E, and the E is extra resources. Again, it's the exact same extra resources that you use in your condition report, and you walk through the MORE acronym again. So now, based on a firefighter or a crew of firefighters being trapped inside a structure, you're going to look at those MORE acronyms or efforts. Medical. Do I need medical resources for those firefighters? And obviously the answer is yes. But remember, when you're talking about firefighters inside a structure that causes a mayday situation, this can actually be burn related or trauma related or smoke inhalation. So depending on how close your organization or this fire is to a trauma hospital or a burn center, you may look at even possibly using a medical helicopter to transport them to that. So thinking about that from a medical standpoint, ordering enough medical resources to support your problem. Overhead, again, critical in this. Most agencies are actually going to start an additional alarm as soon as they get a firefighter down call, but this overhead comes along with it. You're going to need overhead for a safety officer or a PIO, but the big one is also RIC group supervisor. Now that RIC team, it goes from a crew or a team task level concept to a group concept. And if you have a battalion chief or somebody else from the overhead that can run that, because this is an incident within an incident. So there is your E, extra resources. S is going to be secondary frequency, because at this point you're also going to need a tactical frequency for the fire and a tactical frequency for the firefighter down rescue. So that's your S. C is call for a PAR. So you want to actually call for a PAR, because many times if you have one crew that's in trouble, it is possible for another crew to be in trouble. So get those PAR checks, that personal accountability report checks from the resources, see how they're doing, and go down the list starting with the resources that are closer to the ideal problem. After you get that PAR check done, you're going to go to update objectives. And when you talk about updating objectives on this, your objectives have changed to, you're solely there now to save that firefighter, not necessarily the property of this structure, or maybe even the civilian lives, because now you have a firefighter rescue as well. So right then, the way that I actually look at it is I actually go through the SLAB acronym again. I actually take this SLAB and put it directly towards a firefighter being trapped inside the structure. So my safety profile, what are some of the safety concerns I have now for getting that firefighter out of their immediate danger area? Life profile. I'm actually going to take the life profile, and just like we did before, I'm determining if we're offensive or defensive going inside based on the SLAB profile, but this time with the life profile, I'm actually engaging it based on a firefighter with personal protective equipment and hopefully air supply. And that will change the survivability profile of that firefighter versus the normal civilian trapped inside that area. So life profile again, air track. I'm comparing, can we go save that firefighter based on what's going on with the air track? And unfortunately, many of these firefighter downs or mayday situations are caused by a change in the fire behavior, a flashover or a backdraft. And if it's such that this fire behavior is not conducive to actually us conducting a firefighter rescue, that's going to be part of updating your objectives. And the building is the same way. The building may have had a collapse. So I'm really going to walk through the slab again. And unfortunately, if that firefighter inside, I go through the slab, and this would be hard for anybody to do. And I wouldn't want to be on scene to this day. But for the command officer, that incident commander, to basically slab the building and say, we're not going inside to save our firefighter, obviously that's going to be pretty tough. And it's going to be a tough decision no matter what. But this slab is another tool again to help you walk through the process of what are we risking versus what are we gaining. And now we're talking about what are we risking is a firefighter's life, what are we gaining a firefighter's life. So we really have to break that down. So we had the update objectives, and then the last is ensure notifications are made. That E, there's a lot of notifications to ensure notifications are made, starting off with, you have the family of the member that's either saved, injured, or killed. Even if you save that firefighter, you're still going to want to do some peer support, critical incident stress debriefing, spend time with the family, because there's going to be a lot of stuff going on. But if that firefighter is injured or unfortunately killed, you have the family to take care of. You have the fire chief, you have the chaplain, you have city government or county government, whatever you actually subscribe to that needs to be notified. And then you have the press, you have a PIO, OSHA is going to be involved, possibly NIOSH. So there's a lot of organizations that need to be contacted if you have one of these actually instances occur. And even if everything goes well, if nothing else, it was a close call. So make those notifications to your training division, your safety officers, other outlets to actually get that close call out into the field, get after action reviews done for that. So that's actually breaking down the rescue acronym for a firefighter rescue or a mayday situation. And hopefully you're finding that information very helpful. And again, Jesse Quinalty for the SLAB Savers Building a Foundation program.